It's Peter Parker here from Milling and Grain magazine at PIX AMC 2018. I'm here with Paul Martin, the president of ATMA in Australia, and also what's your
sales manager?
Sales manager for Harslev Industries. Yeah, great. So we were just discussing that you've sort of moved more into the rendering industry, but you're the president of the Australian Technical Millers Association. Could you give me a little background?
Certainly.
On yourself?
So I started way back in 1992. Just basically got a job at my local mill, which was those days was water wheel flour mills in a little town called Bridgewater in Victoria. So basically, my first manager's name was Andrew Mullins, who's still a part of the ATMA today. He used to live on the corner of my block, so I'd sort of left school. Back in the 90s, it was pretty hard with jobs and apprenticeships. There wasn't really much around, so I went down and just said, "Oh, look, have you got any work?" And then I ended up going to the flour mill, and took me up these big stairs to the top of the mill, and I was basically packing bran and pollard. So the old belt-driven plant would just pack the bags out, and that's where I started really. So I did 3 days on that, and then I ended up getting a full-time job there, just basically in packing. So had no idea about flour milling at all. Was packing flour, or driving forklifts, loading bulk tankers, and then it just sort of went from there, I suppose. I then got a full-time job as a forklift driver, so I had experience there, and then I finally got a job in the mill. So we used to prepare the grain. So in those days it's called a wheatman. Used to basically grist all the grain together and condition it and prepare it for milling. So you'd work alongside your miller as well. And then I got a job as what's called, those days it's called a topman, so that was your miller's assistant, so you helped the miller to run the mill, and this is all back in the days where there wasn't PLCs and electronics running everything.
More manual.
And then from there I then got a job in the lab, so testing the flour, so I'd learn a bit more about the dough properties and baking quality and all that stuff as well. And then I progressed actually into the mill as the flour miller, so I was running the mill, so running the shift. So I did that for a couple of years, and then in the year 2000 was when water wheel basically went into receivership. So then Lauke Flour Mills then took over or purchased the mill. And then once they purchased the mill, I actually got promoted to be the job as head miller. So then I basically did that role as head miller for the next 10 years. So that basically was really just managing all the milling side of things. So all of the shifts, the rosters, the gristing, basically production, everything was just under my control. And just learn as I went. We did a couple of projects. The Bridgewater mill was a really old mill. It was like a 70-year-old mill when I first started. It had a lot of old bucket elevators and things. So we did modifications and upgrades. So I did a lot of project managing in that time as well. But it was basically just to keep the mill running. And it's where I really learnt my flour milling skills, because everything was hand adjusted. As I said, there was no computers or no nothing. It was basically you tightened up the roll, you felt the stocks, and you did everything by hand, everything by eye, everything by ear.
The best way to learn.
Exactly.
Probably,
If a belt squeaked, you were out on the floor and you were looking, if a belt had come off. Because the other defining part of the Bridgewater mill was that it was all run, basically the Loddon River runs through Bridgewater, and basically back in the 1800s they dug a water race, and they basically had a big turbine. So this turbine used to run a belt, which would run a rope, which would run a belt, and the whole plant was run off one motor. So it was just absolutely crazy.
It squeaks all over the show.
Exactly right. So if that motor wasn't going, the whole plant was stopped. So it was pretty amazing. So I saw a lot of changes in the sort of 18 years that I worked at that plant. We obviously brought a lot of electric motors in and all that sort of stuff as well. And in the end, the turbine was non-functional just because of droughts, and then we didn't have the water flow. So it progressed, and then now Lauke Mills have actually built themselves a brand new mill on the site. So the old mill is sort of a bit of a museum now, I suppose. So that's where I sort of come from with milling. So as the ATMA goes, I first got introduced in the ATMA in the early 2000s, and then, as I said, become a member of the ATMA, and then I just really love what the ATMA does, because the ATMA is about just the technical millers. You know what I mean? So they're about the guys that are actually running the plants, not
Right.
about the owners or anything like that. It's about the millers.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
we really sort of focus on is the millers. It's not a company membership. It's an individual membership.
Right.
And basically, I love because I've got a passionate personality, and I love to learn. So we just basically with the ATMA, I got to know other people, and when you're in a place, and you can probably appreciate this being in New Zealand, you sort of can't see the forest for the trees.
Yes.
So then the more I got out to ATMA functions, you could talk to like-minded people, and then you just think, oh, geez, I'm not on my own with this, or they give you an idea or a situation, you'd say, oh, yeah, I've experienced that, and vice versa. And it really brought me out of my shell,
Right.
and just expanded, and I just loved and was so passionate about the ATMA. I then became an executive committee member of the ATMA, and then I've progressed obviously to the president of the ATMA, which I think I've been president for about 8 years now.
Right.
And just absolutely love what we stand for, and just to try to help the technical millers in the country, basically.
That's excellent. So you mentioned that a big benefit of the ATMA is networking. How else do you see that it helps the industry?
Look, it's because we're here to help with training. We do obviously with the NABN, so in the flour milling side of things, we really focus on that as well, because the ATMA was first developed for the flour milling industry, basically. So obviously we do the distance learning through NABN back in the UK.
Yes.
So it's to try to help and benefit the millers, or in those days it was the flour millers. But now, in recent times, we've got a good cult following of stock feed manufacturers as well.
Brilliant.
Because still that cereal milling industry. So we've got a good mix of millers as well. And with at the moment a lot of the bigger flour milling companies, it's sort of more sort of David and like bigger companies and less smaller ones.
Oh, right.
Where the stock feed is more on the other side. You've got a lot of privately owned companies, and only a small amount of corporate companies.
I see.
So there's been a lot more support in recent years from smaller plants, which has been fantastic as well. So we've got a big culmination of stock feed as well, and to that as well, we have the ATMA to support the industry as well. Every 2 years at this conference we do what's called our Young Achiever Award.
Yes.
So basically that was the first time ever that it's been won by a stock feed manufacturer, a technical
right.
stock feed miller.
Was
this
it
year.
this year? Right.
This year, yeah. So we've got our first ever stock feed manufacturer, so it's only ever been flour before that. So it's been great to really cement the fact that we've got a good team of flour millers and feed millers, because it's all about the technical millers really. So,
Right.
So we're just a company. We just serve the industry basically to try to make sure that there's technical millers, because as I said before, not many mills are hand operated anymore. It's all about machines and PLCs and automation.
Yes.
And with those sort of things, my fear is that millers are becoming more machine minders,
Right.
rather than actual millers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So they're not feeling the stock, they're not adjusting the things, they're not listening with their ears. They're waiting for an alarm, or they're things like that as well.
Sure.
So the ATMA is really, the benefit of us is to keep up that practical side of things as well, and not just become office workers. We are actually millers.
Yeah. Cool. So with almost 30 years in the industry, and this all in Australia, you would know pretty well the Australian industry. What do you see as the biggest challenges for Australian milling?
Australian milling, like most industries, especially with the manufacturing side of things, it's just basically getting employees, getting people that actually want to work. Like as I said to you before, I started at the bottom. I packed bags. I worked in every area. I worked my way up the ladder. A lot of young people today, unfortunately, just are a lot more. They just want to be here,
yes,
without being down here.
Yes.
And they just don't understand it. And in situations where companies have employed, like accountants or things to be general managers of companies, they just don't understand milling. They don't understand the manufacturing side of it.
Yes.
And it's really detrimental, because they've then lost a lot of good manufacturers and a lot of good millers just because they haven't been looked after at the end of the day. So
right.
again, it's not a glorious thing. There's no real, other than the NABN sort of flour milling. With the stock feed manufacturers, they've just developed like an online learning tool as well. But really, it's not like a plumber or an electrician. There's no recognised apprenticeship to become like a qualified miller.
Yeah.
So that really holds back a lot of the industry as well. So
Right.
So those little areas, and again, how we combat that, I don't know. As I said, we've got courses, we've got things that we're trying to implement as well. But that's probably the biggest battle, is just having good people that actually want to, because you can make a career out of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so yeah, like I said, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a flour miller. I just fell into it, but it's been an amazing career, and I've progressed and really loved every minute of it. So, and met some amazing people, and it's just one of those things that I think, as I said, it's not flour milling, it's not stock food milling, it's not rendering. It's every industry faces the same battle. It's like, how do you get people into that industry?
Yeah. I was speaking to Fiona Taylor, who's also from the ATMA, and she was telling me that you've just recently introduced 2 more awards, which is going to be a great incentive for young millers and training up.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
As I said, that's more, again, the support of the ATMA for our industry as well. Those awards actually relate to this flour milling training as well. We'd actually noticed with the, because there's 7 modules in this flour milling training, and it's a distance learning course. So basically, we saw that the grades weren't as good as they was getting fails and things like that as well. So we thought we'd give a bit more of an incentive. So for the intermediate course, we've actually put in a prize the prize is to attend this conference. So our first recipient is actually here for this conference as well, all expenses paid.
Brilliant.
And then the advanced section, which is finishing off. Basically, we've put together an award in conjunction with a mill over in the UK to actually send that person over to a mill and have a week's training in their plant. So the Kilcurdy's mill over in the UK. So that person is actually going to be heading over there as well. So there's just a couple of little sort of initiatives that we've sort of put together just to try to, as I said, help the industry really to keep people wanting to train, wanting to learn, and get a bit more practical experience as well.
Right. Cool. Oh, that's fantastic what you're doing for the industry.
Yeah, no.
Cool.
We do try, as I said. That's what the ATMA is all about. It's just about the industry. It's about our members. We're not making any money. All of our executive committee do this from the goodness of our heart. We don't get paid anything, and we just basically do it because we're passionate and we love it, and we want the industry and all the young up and comers to be to have a career and to benefit from it, like all of us have. So,
yeah, fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No problems at all.
Cool. Thank you.